Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. The Californian heat was hitting hard that day. The sun seemed to hang relentlessly in the sky, without a single cloud to soften its heat. The air vibrated with an almost oppressive heaviness, as if each breath required extra effort. The thermometer in the old Ford Focus read 38 degrees Celsius, but the interior of the vehicle felt much hotter, a veritable greenhouse on wheels. The asphalt, black and shiny, seemed to ripple beneath the car's wheels, blurring the horizon in a mirage-like illusion. In this dusty suburb of Bakersfield, everything seemed frozen, as if slowed by a summer torpor. The asphalt was sticky under the soles of your shoes. The wind, when it blew, carried with it an ochre dust that crept everywhere, onto the windshield, into the folds of your clothes, even into your throat. Even the trees, tired, seemed to be leaning over their trunks, their leaves heavy with heat. At the wheel, Samantha Hayes, 8 months pregnant, was struggling with a dull fatigue. Her sweaty hands slipped slightly on the steering wheel, and her back ached from the Braxton Hicks contractions, which she had come to recognize, but which, each time, revived a primal fear. Her husband, Chris, had been on assignment in Jordan for almost 3 weeks. She sent him messages every night, photos of her growing belly, news of the baby who was moving more and more, as if to fill the void. But despite the long-distance love, despite the sweet words and the promises of return, she felt lonely. For 2 weeks, she'd been managing everything: the house, the shopping, the uncontrollable surges of emotion, the nights interrupted by the kicks of her unborn son. Chris's absence, the fear of childbirth, the tight finances, everything weighed on her shoulders. That morning, she was heading to her final prenatal appointment, her belly tense, her stomach in knots, but determined. She had driven slowly to the nearest gas station, her car already coughing for a few days. She prayed the old Ford would last a few more weeks, just long enough to deliver her baby. She turned off the engine, got out slowly, and filled the tank with gas. Each movement required a calculated effort. Then she got back in the car, buckled her seatbelt with difficulty, and turned the key. Nothing. Then a dull thud. The engine vibrated for a second, shuddered like a wounded animal, then abruptly shut off. A thin wisp of smoke escaped from the hood. A pungent smell of fuel filled the cabin. Samantha coughed, panicked. She quickly opened the door, placed her swollen feet on the hot asphalt, and got out with a jerky movement. She searched for her phone. Black screen. No battery. She looked around, her heart pounding. There were people, but they weren't the right kind of people. A man in a suit, probably a busy executive, glanced briefly, then looked away, checking his Apple Watch. A woman in her 50s shrugged, muttering, "Poor girl," almost inaudible. A teenager in shorts walked past her, his eyes glued to his screen, headphones in his ears, the music muffled but audible. She takes the lead, tries a "excuse me," but her voice broke. Her stomach was aching, her head was buzzing, and the heat was making dark spots dance before her eyes. She leaned against the car, her arms shaking. Her legs felt like jelly. A tear slowly rolled down her cheek. She tried to wipe it away, proud, dignified, but a second followed. Then a third. She could no longer distinguish between fatigue, fear, loneliness, or simply having reached her limit. Maybe it was all three. Maybe it was all of them. Maybe this summer day would be the one she realized how much being strong, alone, came at a price. But as she felt her breath coming short, a shadow slowly moved towards her. Samantha felt like the world was blurring. Heat rose to her head like a stifling steam. Every beat of her heart pounded in her temples. And as she tried to control her breathing on the hot pavement, a sleek, almost silent black car quietly pulled up to the gas station directly behind hers. The muffled sound of the electric motor died away to a whisper. The door opened, and a man got out. He didn't look like the hurried shoppers she'd seen, nor like the ones looking away to avoid her gaze. He was simply dressed: dark jeans, worn but clean sneakers, and a plain black t-shirt that clung slightly to his chest in the heat. A gray baseball cap pulled down over his forehead, and sunglasses partially hid his face. But it was his demeanor that first struck Samantha: calm. He walked with a kind of quiet serenity, a measured, steady step. Without haste, without contempt. He approached her, at a respectful distance. "Are you all right, madam?" he asked, his voice low, deep, but incredibly soft, like a cushion in the tumult. Samantha, still wary, looked up at him. She searched his face for aggression, pity, judgment, but she saw nothing but sincerity. She nodded automatically for a moment before reality hit her hard. Her throat tightened. "The car died. My phone died too, and I'm supposed to be at the hospital in 40 minutes. Last checkup before delivery." Her voice trembled. She felt ridiculous, vulnerable. But he didn't laugh. He didn't even frown with that fake sympathy others sometimes assumed. He took a quick, almost technical look at the half-open hood of his Ford, then took his phone out of his pocket. With a few gestures, he dialed a number and spoke to someone confidently but concisely, as if he knew exactly what to do. He said words like Ford, Bakersfield, emergency, pregnant woman, with a calm that was reassuring. Then he hung up and came back to her. "A tow truck is coming. I warned them it's urgent. They'll be quick. In the meantime, you can sit in my car if you like. The air conditioning works." He gestured discreetly toward the black vehicle, a Tesla Model X. The windows were tinted, the leather looked clean, and soft music wafted faintly from inside, almost imperceptible. Samantha hesitated. Her cautious instincts told her to be wary. She didn't know this man. She was pregnant, vulnerable, but her body was betraying her. She was at her wit's end. She placed her hand on her stomach. The baby was moving. He felt everything, too. "You're very kind, but I shouldn't." He didn't seem offended. He just smiled softly, a smile without pressure. "I understand. No problem. If you prefer, I'll stay right next door, in the shade. So you won't be alone." She sensed, in his response, a complete lack of ego. He wasn't trying to impress or convince, just to help. She sat down slowly on the sidewalk, panting. Her back ached, and she was short of breath. The man disappeared into the station for a few moments, then returned with a bottle of ice-cold water and a honey and almond energy bar. "Here. It'll do you good. And the little one too, I suppose." She thanked him, her voice cracking. The cool water felt like a balm. He sat down not far from her, on a curb, still keeping a respectful distance. Then, after a few minutes of silence, he asked, "Do you have a first name?" She hesitated to answer, but he had already seen her in her distress, had helped her without asking. "Samantha. Samantha Hayes." He nodded slowly. "Nice to meet you, Samantha. I'm Elon." She frowned slightly. A familiar name. Very familiar. "Elon, like Elon Musk?" she asked, almost laughing, convinced that it must be a coincidence. He smiled, a little embarrassed this time. He took off his sunglasses. His eyes were clear, intelligent, almost tired, but alive. And then, she recognized him. Yes, the same. The heat seemed to freeze in the air, suspended above the improbable scene unfolding in front of the gas station. This forgotten corner of Bakersfield, usually shrouded in anonymity, became, in a matter of hours, a global focal point. It all started with a discreet gesture. 16-year-old Mia Thompson was waiting in line with her mother to pay for a drink. Looking through the dusty window of the store, she recognized the man in black. At first, she thought it was an illusion, a doppelganger, perhaps, but the more she looked at him, the faster her heart raced. That profile, that posture, that way of listening intently, it was definitely him. Elon Musk. Stealthily, she took out her phone. She started recording silently, without zooming, so as not to attract attention. In the video, he is seen, simply dressed, holding an umbrella over a pregnant woman, shielding her from the scorching sun. No bodyguard, no official camera, just him, sitting on a hot sidewalk, holding out a bottle of water, speaking softly, calling an ambulance on his own phone when he noticed Samantha clutching her stomach, her eyes shining with pain. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't making a show of himself. He was taking action. When Mia posted the video on TikTok with the caption, "Elon Musk helps a pregnant woman in the middle of nowhere, flushed face red heart, #respect," she didn't expect what was to come next. Within an hour, the video had reached 1 million views. Within 4 hours, it was being shared on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit. Influencers commented on it. Journalists shared it. Celebrities retweeted the moment, talking about the humanity behind the genius. But what the video didn't show was the main point. A few minutes before help arrived, when the tension in the air seemed to be suspended, Elon sat next to Samantha, his back against the station's warm wall. He didn't speak right away. He looked at her with that rare, almost painful attention, not as one looks at a stranger, but as one looks at a memory. Then, almost in a low voice, he said to her, "You know, when my first son, Nevada, died at 10 weeks old, I understood how fragile life is, how everything can change, overnight, without warning." Samantha turned her head toward him, surprised. He had said this without anger, without pathos, just a naked, raw statement. His face was calm, but his eyes shone with an old-fashioned fatigue, a controlled sadness. "So even though I have 1,000 things to do, businesses to run, meetings, space deadlines, there's nothing more important than this moment. What you're experiencing. This miracle." He gently placed the umbrella on the ground, discreetly wiped his forehead, then added, "I know what it's like to be afraid that life will slip away from you. I know what it's like to want to control everything, and to discover that some things, like birth or loss, are bigger than us." Samantha, tears in her eyes, reached out to him. It wasn't a formal handshake. It was a gesture of recognition, of sharing humanity. He took it without hesitation. "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you," he answered without waiting. "You just created life. I thank you. You remind people like me why we build all this, why we want to go to Mars. It's not to escape Earth. It's to protect what's most precious, what's right here, right now, beside you." Then, at that precise moment, the ambulance arrived. The medical staff ran out, and Elon calmly went to meet them, explaining the situation with deliberate gestures. He never put himself forward. He never drew attention to himself. The rest happened quickly. Samantha was taken care of, put into the vehicle, and reassured. But before the doors closed, she took one last look at him. He raised his hand. A humble, silent greeting. In the hours that followed, major media outlets picked up on the video. CNN, BBC, Le Monde, and NHK all aired the footage. But even more than the gesture itself, it was the sincere emotion in the words he shared with Samantha, later transcribed in an interview she gave to a local journalist, that moved the public. Less hashtags #ElonHuman and #ThanksElon flooded the networks. Some said it was a PR stunt, but most people saw clearly that there was no staging, no artificial lighting, just an unexpected encounter, a shared fragility, a life growing, and a man, once broken, reaching out to help. The morning sun filtered through the white curtains of Samantha's modest home, now decorated with pink balloons, stuffed animals, and bouquets donated by a few sympathetic neighbors. Hope slept peacefully in her bassinet, her face relaxed, tiny yet immense in her mother's eyes. Samantha, still tired from childbirth, savored every moment. The silence between bottles, the warm scent of a newborn, her daughter's shallow breaths. She felt different, changed, as if she had been deconstructed by fear, then rebuilt by love and surprise. That morning, as she went to open the mailbox, she saw a car parked in front of her house. A discreet sedan with tinted windows. A man in a black suit handed her a sealed envelope without saying a word before driving off. No logo, no camera, no noise. Intrigued, she tore open the envelope. A sheet of elegantly grained paper with a familiar signature. "Dear Samantha, it was an honor to meet you. I've asked my team to deliver a Tesla Model Y to you. Safe, autonomous, efficient. This isn't a gift. It's an investment in the future. Yours and Hope's. I also learned, quietly, that you put your passion aside to follow Chris in his commitments. I deeply respect that, but I also believe that your professional future deserves a second chance. Attached is a Tesla employment contract, with the option to work remotely at your own pace. A scholarship is also available if you wish to resume your engineering studies. You reminded me what it means to create something beautiful out of chaos. Thank you for that. Take care of yourself. And of Hope. Elon." With trembling hands, Samantha read and reread the letter. The words were simple, but carried an immense weight. This wasn't charity. This was trust. A hand reaching out toward the future. A bridge between two worlds, that of the powerful and that of the forgotten. On the table, a bound folder. The contract was clear. A position as an energy design analyst. Complete flexibility. Training included. No catches. Just an open door. She thought of her college years, cut short too soon. Of her engineering dreams, put on hold during garrison life with Chris. Of all the times she'd said to herself, One day, maybe. And to this day, which had finally arrived. 2 hours later, a truck pulled up the street. In the back, a pristine white Tesla Model Y, equipped with a built-in baby seat, advanced safety features, and an interface tailored to a new mother. The driver unceremoniously placed the keys in her hands, with a genuine smile. No ads, no photographers, just a machine ready to roll toward a new life. The media talked about it for weeks. But it wasn't the car that captured the attention. It wasn't even the job offer. It was the tone, the context, the lack of spectacle, the fact that this profoundly human gesture had been made in silence, almost in secret. In a later interview with a local channel, Samantha recounted the story, not for fame, but to express gratitude. And one sentence, spoken with disarming simplicity, was shared millions of times on social media. He didn't see a stranger. He saw a mother. He saw the human before the rest. Artists wrote it in calligraphy. Activists quoted it. Young mothers shared it. And even in the most cynical circles of the internet, respect prevailed. A morning like any other, but never ordinary again. A few weeks later, Samantha was driving the Tesla along a quiet road outside Bakersfield. In the back, in a state-of-the-art baby seat, Hope slept, lulled by the softness of the quiet engine. She glanced in the rearview mirror. All she saw was a sleeping baby. But in that gaze, she also saw a future. Her own. Her daughter's. A world where a moment of kindness could change everything. The day his car broke down was no bad luck. It was a tipping point. The day when an unlikely encounter transformed an ordinary life into an extraordinary testimony of dignity, faith in others, and hope. A word, a first name, suddenly became prophetic. Hope.